All right, I'm going to try doing a video to go along with this video that I made. So let's get started. Maybe. There we go. All right, so in July of last year, I was visiting with someone and they have a cat. We were outside, we were just hanging out. I think we ate dinner or maybe just talked or whatever, but they have a cat. The cat was outside. I called the cat over. I actually have a cat in my lap right now, coincidentally. And the cat head butted my hand, told me it wanted to be petted. I pet the cat. The cat rolled onto its back, clawed me and bit me. You can see the claw marks on my arm right there. And one tooth sank into the back of my hand. Didn't hurt very badly. And then the cat wanted more pets immediately after, and I declined petting it. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to pet you anymore. He didn't give any indication that he was going to bite me. He just bit me and then, forgot about it. So the cat was, like I said, fully vaccinated, so there's no risk of any, super dangerous diseases like rabies or anything. But the person I was visiting brought me an alcohol wipe. They happen to have an alcohol wipe on their person right when this happened. And so within about 60 seconds of the bite, I wiped it down with an alcohol swab, and I didn't think much of it. I happened to be texting with my daughter, who was with her dad for the weekend, and I sent her a picture and said, "Oh, the cat bit me." Right? That's how I know. I've got this time stamp on this picture here. So there's a puncture in the back of my hand, tiny little puncture. So I went home and I folded some laundry and I ran some errands. I did some other things and I felt fine. And then I got home and I was doing a lot of walking at this time of year. I was walking at night and I went out for a walk. And like I said, I'd folded a couple loads of laundry earlier, so my hand was fine at that point. While I was walking, I was texting with a friend of mine and my hand started to swell, right? Near the puncture. You can see there in this picture, you can see it's kind of swelling near the puncture wound. And it started to hurt, right? And it wanted to be like elevated. My hand was, I'd put it down and then it would hurt and feel, kind of throbby. So I'd hold it up on my chest. And I was texting my friend, I'm like, my hand's starting to hurt a little bit. So here I'm texting her. And at around 11:15, so this was the bite happened at 7, right? So a couple hours later, 3 or 4 hours later, I could no longer oppose my thumb. Right? My thumb would no longer go across the palm of my hand. And that was a little alarming to me, right? That I was losing hand function. My right hand is my dominant hand. That's where the bite was. So I was like, I don't really like that. And I drew a line around the swelling at that point to keep track of it. I was thinking at this point, like I may have to go to the hospital or I may have to go in somewhere. After hours clinics were closed. It was after 10 and, the urgent cares or whatever weren't open. So I decided, like I said, to draw a line around it to see, to kind of watch the progression of the swelling. This is around midnight, right? It's kind of a fuzzy picture, but the swelling was getting worse. And then right around midnight, I texted a friend of mine who does cat rescue. And I asked her what she thought. And she said, you should go in, right? And I kind of asked her, like, tonight or tomorrow? And here I'm telling her that snake bites are easier because I've been bitten by lots of snakes. Like this cat bite was by far worse. She said, you need an antibiotic. Go to the ER, don't wait till morning. And I was a little reluctant, right, at this point. So what time was it? And right around this time, around 12:15, I texted my friend Kim, who I had been texting earlier, and she was kind of following the progress when I was going for my walk. And at this point, 12:15, my hand was useless. I could no longer oppose my thumb at all. Like I could get it maybe to my my first finger and second finger earlier in the evening. By this point, I couldn't get it. I couldn't oppose my thumb at all. Like I couldn't bend my hand. I also couldn't bend my hand backwards or forwards. and clenching was really difficult and painful. So, like I said, this is my dominant hand. I like being able to use it. So this was a little alarming to me to have my hand go from fully functional to like a paperweight at the end of my arm within 5 hours. Right? So I didn't like that. So at around 1 a.m., I decided to go to the ER. So again, here I'm talking about my hand, my thumb no longer being opposable. In this image here, you can see the swelling is kind of creeping up my arm. So I had drawn that line around the swelling at around 11, and an hour and a half later, the swelling is kind of exceeding these boundaries. You can see how the vasculature is no longer very visible here. And if you look at this image, you can kind of see it creeping up my arm. My wrist was starting to hurt at this point too. So I went in to the ER, and this image here skips, I don't know, what is it? Hold on. Sorry. This skips about 6 hours worth of waiting. So I went to the ER during COVID, right? There's a guy barfing. There's another guy who's passed out and keeps, coming to and then coughing up a storm and barfing, and a couple barfers in the room. There was another lady who came in. She was struggling to breathe. And I'm like, oh my gosh. There was another lady who was just irate and didn't seem to have anything wrong with her. And she kept screaming that, they needed to help her, and why was it taking so long? And she was obviously a regular. Everyone in there knew her name. Everyone working there knew who she was. So she obviously goes there a lot. So this was 6 hours I was sitting here. And during the 6 hours of me waiting to be seen, I realized that walking in and telling them, like, hey, I got bitten by a cat, probably wasn't the best move, right? They're like, okay, lady, bitten by a cat, right? Instead, I should have said, I have a rapidly advancing infection in my dominant hand, right? And I need IV antibiotics, right? I probably should have said something more along those lines instead of like cat bite. Right? During this time, I learned that white middle-aged women are the most commonly victimized people when it comes to cat attacks. Apparently, Caucasian women in their 40s like petting cats and often get bitten in the hand. And in my subsequent research, and just talking to people after this incident, I have met a lot of people who have been bitten by cats in the hand and who have had to be hospitalized or had surgery because of this. So I guess I knew it was a thing, but it just seemed like a thing like over there instead of a thing that could happen to me. I'm like, dang, now I'm a statistic. All right, so I waited for 6 hours. I finally saw a physician's assistant at around 7:30 a.m., so 6 hours after I went in, 12 hours plus after the bite. At this point, the swelling was substantial, and they did blood work right away. They did an x-ray. I knew the x-ray wouldn't show anything, right? There was no bone damage, but ooh, look at this. You can see my little sesamoid bones. Like, I've got some extra bones here in my hand. A lot of people have those, but I was excited to see sesamoid bones. Right, everything looks fine here in the x-ray. They did an ultrasound. They did a tetanus shot. They started IV antibiotics, an antibiotic called Unison. One of the side effects is a black hairy tongue, which thank goodness I didn't get, but believe me, I was checking my tongue for black hairiness for a few days after that antibiotic. So the tetanus shot is one of those things that's kind of odd. You don't usually build the antibodies after your tetanus shot for like 2 weeks. Right? And if you have been exposed to tetanus like through this bite, I would have been sick within 4 days. So the antibodies wouldn't even have time to build, but whatever. Right? Got the tetanus shot. And the main event here was getting the ultrasound. So the PA, she's doing the ultrasound. I said, what are you looking for? She said, oh, just a pocket of fluid. And then depending on what I find, the hand surgeon will come talk to you. And I just hadn't thought about surgery at that point. I'm like, the hand surgeon? She's like, yeah. I'm like, for me? For my hand? For now? She's like, yeah, if there's a pocket of fluid here, and there's a pocket of fluid, right? A giant pocket of fluid. So she saw the pocket of fluid. She showed me. It was this big black pocket of fluid on the back of my hand. She said, yeah, he's going to want to do surgery. So he'll come, do a consult, and then he'll get surgery. All right. So, like, dang, that hadn't dawned on me, right? So, is it moving? Yeah. So the ultrasounds show that pocket of fluid, and the PA also mentioned when she talked about surgery that they're going to leave it open, right? And in my head, I'm like, okay, like, leave it open. That's cool. I thought they'd cut a little hole in it and leave it open. It's a little hole, and that's fine, I guess. They know what they're doing. All right, so they're going to do that. Here's a video showing the swelling. This is after a few rounds of IV antibiotics. All right, so at this point, I had, I think, 2 rounds of IV antibiotics. It's about 1 p.m. the next day. All right, so you can see how extensive the swelling is and how much fluid is in the back of my hand. All right, and this video, let me go back a little bit. This video is a range of motion video. This was at 4 p.m. the day after the bite. This was just before surgery. I just flung the lid for a pen on the floor. Just gonna leave it. All right, this was right before surgery. I was in the, I don't know, whatever, the staging area before you go back for surgery. The doctor would come in and talk with me, and I'd ask him a few questions. And among those questions were things like, can I just stay awake and watch? He's like, no, that's weird. Like, okay. Will you take a picture? He's like, that's also weird, but I'll take a picture for you. And at this point, I had had 4 rounds of IV antibiotics, and I'd been in the hospital, like I said, since admitted at 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. or whatever. So this was 4 p.m. that day. And this is a range of motion test. This is as much motion as I could possibly muster in my dominant hand, and I was trying really hard, and it hurt very badly. So this is me attempting to do this, and this, and this, right? And I think I try to make a fist in this one too. All right, so let's look at the range of motion. This is me bending forward, and I'm all feeble and shaky. You can see it kind of quaking. Here's me bending back as far as I can. That's as far back as I could bend my wrist. Here's me opposing my thumb. I managed to get the ring finger, but if I wasn't taking a video, and my pinky, I would have been saying bad words. There's me trying to make a fist. It was really slow. My hand wasn't very responsive. All right, so that's it. Here's the photo during surgery. So they took a picture in the OR, and then they used my cell phone to take a picture of their screen or whatever. And when I woke up, this was on my screen, or this was on my cell phone, which was cool. I'm like, oh, you did it. In recovery, I've never been high. I've never done any drugs or drank or anything like that. And so I'm not used to altered levels of consciousness as my normal experience. And I was tripping. I was like, whoa, when I was coming out of surgery. So that was interesting. I didn't like that feeling. Like the room was kind of swirling and spinning, and like, why would you like that? That's not fun, right? I don't like that. All right, so there's my hand. Here it is all wrapped up, and I'm back in my room. My dad came to visit me right around this time. I think it was, he cut up my Salisbury steak that the hospital made me, right, or the hospital brought me. And he, visited, said hi. All right, and this is, I think that said around noon. Actually, yeah, it was noon the next day. It wasn't, maybe, no, it was 6 p.m. I don't know, whatever it said. What did it just say? Do you guys remember? Okay, where'd it go? Okay, oh, this is the day after. So that last one was 6 p.m. So this is the day after. This is right before my bandage change. This is my bandage change right here. Let me go back to the beginning. How's range of motion? Okay. So she's taking off the gauze, and then underneath that is a packing of, it's called Vaseline gauze. It's just a petroleum jelly rubbed onto a piece of gauze, and it's packed into the wound. I think she apologized for hurting me. All right. So that's what I saw right after she took off the bandage. I knew it was open, right? They told me it was open. I get it. It's open. I saw the picture of the surgery. I'm like, I get it. It's open. But then when I saw it in real life, I was a little sweaty, right? I was feeling a little sweaty there. I'm looking at that. I'm like, wow, that is, yep, that is open. Like all open, a lot open. Um, so remember, I had a tiny puncture from a cat tooth that didn't hurt when it happened. And then this, right? So um, when I showed people this, they're like, what kind of cat was it? Was it like a freaking mountain lion? Right? So it would have been cooler if it was like a shark or a bear or anything aside from a cat, like a house cat. Anyway, house cat, big thing on my hand. All right, so the next little video, this is watching the tendon move. Can you see it? My daughter's in the other room. Ew. All right, there's me leaving the hospital, all discharged, 3 p.m. And then at home, here's a wound care kit. When they discharged me, they gave me instructions. The nurse who changed the bandage in that video, she talked to me about wound care. So twice a day, I needed to irrigate the wound with the saline here. Right? I had to take off the stuff, squirt it with saline, all right, flush it out or whatever. Then I had to pack it with Vaseline gauze. That's in this little package here. This big blob or this big sheet of it, it lasted the whole time, right? I never needed more. And I would cut off a little section that was kind of shaped like the opening, and I would, after I put on some bacitracin, that stuff right here, I put on some bacitracin, and then I packed the wound with gauze, with this Vaseline gauze so it wouldn't stick, and then covered it with, I don't know, a little square of dry gauze and taped it up. Right, so I had to do this twice a day for, I don't know, not, I think it was like 10 days or something like that. I can't remember. All right, and I had instructions not to get it wet, and to just be really careful with it. All right. So let me see here. All right, let's go on. Here's my son, my 12-year-old son, helping me change the bandage. This is the day after surgery. I wasn't sure how well I'd be able to do this on my own. So it's my son helping. That's me giggling at my son. You'll hear him gag in a second. All right. So here's him irrigating it. He almost poked it with that, and I was not gonna be happy. There's, So I measured it. It was about 1.5 inches long and about 3/8 of an inch wide. I was trying to measure with my left hand on my right hand and take a picture at the same time, so I was struggling. There's my son, all happy. He's a little sweaty after that endeavor, but he did it. All right. This is range of motion Monday. So look how easily I can oppose my thumb. That's how far forward I can bend. That's how far back I can bend. That's one day. Like I said, I had the surgery Saturday, so 2 days after. I was very pleased. This is me doing range of motion with the bandage off. I went for a bike ride this day. It would really stiffen up when I wasn't using it, right? It would get really stiff and it would hurt or be really difficult to make a tight fist. So Tuesday after surgery, so surgery was Saturday, Tuesday, I went bike riding with a friend of mine. We did about 16 miles and I was a little concerned bike riding, but it ended up being okay. Well, I did wipe out once, but it was only because the boardwalk was slippery and wet. Right. And I didn't hit my bad hand when I wiped out. So it, like I said, I couldn't make a tight fist until after I rode the bike, and then I could easily make a tight fist. It was like I loosened it up, exercising and moving it and using it, you know, for a couple hours of riding. So there's me doing a mobility test, showing the grossness. Yummy. So then we had a backpacking trip planned, some friends and I. This is the Wednesday after surgery. So Saturday was surgery, Wednesday went backpacking. I asked the physician assistant and the surgeon if I could go backpacking, and they said, of course, right? I mean, what could go wrong? Watch for signs of infection. I was on an antibiotic. What was it? Once a day at this point? I think yeah, once daily oral antibiotic. I think it was just amoxicillin or something. So my concern was that was wiping out my gut flora. I didn't like doing that with the antibiotics, but I'd already done that with the Unison. And then I was a little concerned, like maybe I might get an infection, and I wasn't really near a facility to help me. If you need help on the island, on North Manitou Island, you have to call in, the Coast Guard or a helicopter from Wisconsin or whatever. So I was a little concerned about that. The physician's assistant and the surgeon both said, do not, under any circumstances, get lake water in your wound. Do not. Don't be complacent around the lake. Absolutely do not allow any of that bacteria into your open wound. So I was mindful of that. When we filtered water from the lake, I just made sure that I was really careful and didn't drip anything on my hand. And I kept it dry. And I took a giant first aid kit with me because I still had to continue the wound care twice a day. Right, so I have to keep doing that. There it is. This is on North Manitou Island. Here's us watching a sunset. There's a family over there, some friends of mine. There's my kit. So this is while we were backpacking. Yeah, you can see it's a little gross in there that day. It just looked gooey. So while I was backpacking, I would like tuck my thumb up under the shoulder strap on my opposite shoulder and elevate my hand that way. Sometimes I would hook it. There's a little D-ring. I would hook it through the little D-ring on my backpack just to elevate my hand. If I held it down with the backpack straps on, it would kind of swell and get, I don't know, just painful, kind of throbbing. And what else was I going to say? But the most difficult part certainly wasn't walking and backpacking. The hardest part was shoving stuff into my backpack, right? So I'm right hand dominant. I'm trying to tightly pack all my gear into this backpack. And at one point we had to break camp really quickly. There was a rainstorm coming in and we needed to, pack fast. And that hurt, like jamming my hand down into my backpack, trying to cram stuff into my bag. So this was on Friday. We were still in North Manitou. This was less than a week after surgery. So this is a week after the bite, after the initial bite. That was the previous Friday, but this is a day, or 6 days post-surgery. Vincent said, "That's my son," telling me I was as tan as Trump. So here you can see it kind of bulged oddly. It was getting kind of tight. And so I never did any physical therapy or even talked to anyone about physical therapy. But what I did all the time was just force it through full range of motion, just every day, all day. Every time I think about it, I just force it through full range of motion, oppose my thumb, right, bend my wrist, right, turn it, whatever, clench my fist, unclench my fist, just whatever movements a normal hand is capable of, I would make this hand do it, right? And sometimes when I was hiking, I would do it like 10 times in a row, just do whatever, exercises I thought were best. And the hardest for me was probably a hard clench, right? Clenching my fist really hard. And I think it's because some of that scar tissue was forming and it was getting kind of tight in there. And so that was probably the most difficult, is just a hard fist clench. And I like clenching my fist and punching things occasionally, right? So I wanted that to work properly. My daughter doesn't like the hand. She's grossed out. So this is 1 week post-surgery. We're camping near Point Betsy Lighthouse. All right. And I was doing wound care. All right, 9 days after surgery, it had closed down to about an inch long. I was pretty proud. I was like, good job, hand. Here's me doing range of motion, checking it out. That's not the cat, don't worry. See. Here's 10 days. Okay. At this point, it was starting to look a little weird, right? The edges look kind of folded in. I didn't like that, right? I was like, can you not look like that? It looked like a not safe for work kind of thing. I didn't like that, right? I wasn't a fan. I was really hoping it didn't look like that. I wanted to untuck these edges. See, I wasn't a fan of that. Just looks just kind of wrong. It still hurt to clench my fist at this point. Right, 11 days after, starting to fill in nicely. Oh, there's me kayaking and fishing. I wore a glove over my hand and taped it on so I didn't get my hand wet. All right, I wasn't gonna not do stuff that I like to do, so I just continued doing stuff I like to do. All right, there's 12 days after surgery. Oh, it's my little boy's right after his birthday. All right, so you still see it kind of pulling around in there when I move it. So it was probably around this point when I thought my scar was going to be about that wide, right? I thought, okay, it's going to fill in, it's going to be pretty wide. There were no stitches ever. And people kept asking me, like, okay, so you're going to go in and he's going to close it now, right? No, he's not going to close it. This is healing by secondary intention, right? This is when you leave a wound open so that that fluid and infection or whatever that had collected in my hand after the initial bite. You don't want to reform any of that and allow infection in a very delicate part of my body, my hand, right? I didn't want anything messed up in there. So no, the answer was no. It was never going to be closed by a physician. No one's going to stitch it shut. No one's going to staple it. No one's going to butterfly it, right? This is it. This is how it's going to heal the entire time. So I don't know, people were creeped out by that. So there it is moving. You can see it's filling in really nicely though. You can't see my tendon anymore, which I was a little sad about. All right, so I went to the surgeon. It was 16 days. 16 days after the surgery. It was on a Monday that I went. And he he came into the room. He's like, take off your bandage. I'm like, okay. So I took off my bandage. He's like, it's good. And he put a band-aid on it. And that was it. I was like, so I'm like, what did the culture show? You guys did a culture, right? To check for bacteria. Nothing. There's nothing in there. The culture wasn't done until surgery after I'd had 4 rounds of IV antibiotics. So I had already had tons of antibiotics, right, that had hopefully killed off anything that was in there. He gave me a Band-Aid. He told me I could get it wet, and he sent me on my way. Right, that was it. So there it is. There's my Band-Aid. The visit literally took 90 seconds, and about 60 seconds, I was in the door of the room, and he was already out of the room, and I was like calling to him down the hallway, asking him about the cultures. And he's like, bye. Thanks, guy. Right, glad I drove over here for that. I should have just sent him a picture, like, how's that, bruh? Right, how do you like it? So, all right, there it is, 20 days after. I had been swimming or something that day, so my bandage was kind of really wet. Here it is, 22 days out. It's less than an inch now. Look at that. Here's me, 22 days out. So about 3 weeks out. All right, it's 25 days out. Starting to see some granular tissue poking its way out. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. I'm like, what am I gonna have, blobby fat hand now? Gross. There's 27 days out. Starting to close up pretty nicely. 29 days, almost a month. It was still kind of moist here, right? There's still a little wet spot there, so I would keep a Band-Aid on it. I don't want that spot being just out, getting like dirt and stuff on it. 33 days out, 1 month and 5 days out. Oh, look at this. It got some weird hair growth on there, right? So I was like, what the heck is going on here? Why are you growing weird hair? I don't have that hair on the back of my hand normally, right? Maybe there's like a few little teeny hairs, but the entire back of my hand had noticeable hair on it at this point. And I've read into it. Apparently, sometimes when you have like wound healing like that, your body just makes new hair. So I don't know what that says about, baldness or whatever. Maybe you could just scratch up your head and get new hairs. Cat bites on your head. All right. 1 month, 10 days out. And 2 months out. All right, here's 2 months. Here it is now, right? It's a little pinkish right now. All right, sometimes it's not as pink when I have more of a tan, you can't see it as well. Sometimes in certain light, you can barely see it. All right, so that's it. Right now it's February. It's actually Valentine's Day today. So it's been, months at this point, right? But at 2 months out, it looks almost identical to how it looks right now. This, again, is with no stitches, right? No closure other than what my body did on its own. So this went from nearly 1/2 an inch wide and 3/8 of an inch wide at least, and 1.5 inches in length to this little teeny worm of a scar. Right? And I was so impressed with this healing. I just thought it was going to be a big, ugly scar, but a conversation starter, right? People would see it and they'd ask me a question, and I get to talk about it. I get to make up things like, it was a sea lion attack or something cool. Right? I tried to think of something amazing. I was harpooning, wounded whales or something. Harpooning wounded whales, that's awful. I wasn't harpooning whales. Maybe someone harpooned me, all right? So I had all these ideas of things I was going to say. And then that was it. That's the scar. Like, dang it, nobody cares about that. And so again, this is the end product. And we started here. All right. So that was my 2-month journey after a tiny little puncture from a cat. And I've shared this story with lots of people. I shared it on Facebook as it was happening. I kind of, I would update posts weekly or every few days or every day sometimes and show people the progress of the wound healing. But I hadn't done anything like this, like a big presentation of the entire process. So I wanted to do this for some time, and I wanted to share this not only with my students, but with other people as well, so you guys can kind of see how this went. So thank you for your time. I don't know, be mindful of cats. The bites that I've had in my life are many. I've been bitten by a lot of things, and mammals are by far the worst, right? I've been bitten by a rat, a pet rat bit me to the bone. Got bitten by a flying squirrel recently. I've been bitten by bats. I've been bitten by a cat, obviously. Tons of snakes, right? And mammals biting me are by far the most awful of all the bites. I'd much rather be bitten by a snake, right? Anytime, any day. Like, I'd rather be bitten by a snake. All right, so anyway, enjoy this image, and thanks for listening. All right, let me get rid of this.